What are some of the remedies that you can offer for freeing oneself from the despair which is created by comparing oneself to others?
Well, a good remedy is to cultivate the consciousness of abundance. A lot of times what happens with comparison is there's jealousy, or there's envy, or there's some kind of belief that if that person has that, then I can't have it. You know, it perpetuates the thinking of that there's lack. But if we can all get that there's enough abundance in the world, and I'm not just talking about money, I'm talking about just joy, happiness, success, there's enough to go around. And if one person has more of something you think you want, that doesn't mean that they're taking from a pot and you're going to have less. So that's the first thing. And then cultivating the consciousness of gratefulness. You know, I had this assignment for my graduate degree at the University of Santa Monica, where for a month we had to really cultivate the consciousness of gratefulness and gratitude.
Yes.
And boy, was that fun. Like, at first it was a little difficult, and I realized, oh my gosh, like I really walk around not really appreciating everything. But just being in the, I'm so grateful for this, and I'm grateful for that person, and I'm so grateful for that beautiful woman that I get to look at her instead of comparing myself to her. And I'm so grateful for that successful person. Like, I'm learning from that person. I'm so grateful for my car, for my whatever. And it just, the habit of comparison, or even thinking of myself in terms of a standard, just dissipated. It just disappeared. Gratitude took its place.
And I believe it's also possible to be grateful for things that we don't like.
Absolutely.
That aren't nice.
You know, that's such a good point. That's such a good point. And I'm so glad that you brought that forward, Bret, because if we can be like, okay, I'm grateful for the fact that I'm getting pulled over right now and I'm going to get a speeding ticket, you know, and bring humor to it sometimes, and bring the learning. I'm grateful, you know, I'm grateful that my fiance left me. I really am. And when I could get to being grateful for it and see it as a blessing rather than a bad thing that happened to me, totally shifted it.
Yeah. Why is it so important for anyone to gain clarity about who they are, what they want, and how they're going to get it?
I think it's important to gain clarity first and foremost about the question, who am I? I think that's the hardest question that any of us answer in our lives. You know, I always used to answer that question by roles that I played or things that I did. I am a daughter, I'm a Texan, I'm a woman, I'm a wife, I'm an author, you know, by things I did, roles I played, etc. But that's not who I am. Those are just things that I've done, or, you know, circumstances. It's not really who I am. And my process of really discovering the answer to that question was really getting to the core of, you know, what are the qualities that make me me? You know, when I'm really in my joy, or in my gratitude, or in happiness, you know, what comes out of me? Like, what do I really have to share with other people? You know, and that's the question that we all need to start with, is really, who am I? What makes me tick? What gets me excited? You know, what really brings me joy? What makes my heart sing? You know, and so many people focus on that question, what do I want, before they answer the question, who am I? And I'll share a short story where I got confused in this question. So I skipped ahead to the question, what do I want, very quickly, and was focused on my career when I was 16 years old, and decided I wanted to work in the entertainment industry. That's what I want, that's what I want. And when I left it suddenly at, you know, 25, 26 years old, I realized that I had no idea who I was. I was only chasing after what I thought I wanted. And what I wanted wasn't really true, because I never stopped to ask who I am. I picked the entertainment industry because in high school and in junior high, I was teased and I wasn't in the popular crowd. And I made the judgment that being popular equals being happy and liked. And to me, the entertainment industry represented the adult version of the popular crowd. And I thought, hey, if I can prove myself in that field, then I'm finally going to feel good about myself. So I designed a whole career over trying to heal an insecurity that I had from, you know, years and years and years ago. And when I realized that, I was like, oh my gosh, I've been designing a life based on the concept that who I am is an insecure, unpopular person. And once I really got to, wait a second, that's not who I am. That's stuff that happened, but it's not who I am. Then it was more clear to answer the question, what I want, what do I want? And then I was able to see, gosh, what do I want? In terms of, like, you know, a lot of people think, what do I want? It has to equal a specific job. It doesn't. How you clarify that question are, what are the things you want to be doing every day? How do you want to contribute to society? Even something specific like, do you want to be able to wear jeans to work or not? Do you want to work with 50 people or work in a company of 100,000 people? You know, what is the quality of life that you want? And then in terms of how do I get it, clarifying that question is really realizing that we're all completely self-responsible for any action that we take and anything that happens in our life. So how do I get it is it's key to focus on goals rather than expectations. You know, I say to people, if you are at the bottom of a staircase and your destination is to get to the top of the staircase, do you take a running leap and try to skip steps all the way to the top? No, you'd break probably one or two legs.
Right.
You go step by step by step. So in the how do I get what I want, it's important step by step by step rather than looking at the top of the staircase trying to get there, looking at the long term. It's important to have a focus and a vision, but really bring your dedication to each step of the process. The most important thing in clarity about discovering who you are is really asking the question, really realizing that it has nothing to do with anything outside of any of us. You know, clarifying who am I has nothing to do with any external thing. It has nothing to do with your relationships, your career, what you do. And once you have clarity about that, I think it's easier to kind of go within and check inside and see what's in there. You know, you might discover a sense of humor that you didn't know was there. You know, you might discover a passion for something that wasn't there. You might discover creativity that you didn't know was there. And so I think it's really just cultivating an internal process. To me, I think spirituality and meditation is crucial in answering the question, who am I? Because who we are on the truest level is a soul. You know? It's
what's left over after we pass from this life.
Exactly.
It's what continues on forever.
Exactly. It's like this is the shell, right? And inside there's a soul. And we get so focused on the shell and what the shell's doing and what the shell has and how the shell looks that we forget that inside there's a soul where there's a lot of wisdom. But it takes that mind, you know, that ego mind kind of shutting up for a little bit to get quiet enough to start to look for what's within. So to someone seeking clarity, have a quiet time, start some type of meditation practice, start some type of spiritual practice, find a spiritual teacher, you know, that can guide you in that discovery.
I think so many people live by the motto, the person with the most toys at the end of their life wins. How do we disconnect ourselves from that kind of mentality that's all pervasive in today's world?
Yeah, it's interesting. I was reading an article about conversations that a psychologist has had with people as they were dying, and no one ever mentioned their job or how many cars they had. They mentioned people they loved, wishing they had more time with people they loved, and that's what people talk about. And yes, America today is very obsessed with our toys and our games, and I do think that's in the cultural conditioning. I mean, it's all around us. Success is perceived as having a lot of stuff. Older people are not valued in our society. You know, age doesn't equal wisdom. It's like as you get older, you're supposed to be getting richer, you know, not necessarily wiser. And we put people on pedestals that have achieved a lot of material wealth.
Yes.
And I think what helps is more people coming forward that have achieved a lot of that stuff from the outside and saying, hey, it didn't make me happy.
Yeah.
You know, I go and I talk to a lot of groups of people, college students and 20-somethings, and I put this picture up of me with a well-known celebrity that I was dating like briefly, and describe my life. And I was at the Oscars, and I had this fabulous career, and I was making good money, and I had all these friends, and I put this picture up, and I said, I went home that night and cried myself to sleep because I was so depressed and so miserable because nothing was making me feel any better about myself. And I think as people start to share that it doesn't matter, more people might start to get, oh, really? A Ferrari won't make me happy? Oh, okay.
Okay, good. Very clear. Thank you for your honesty about that.